were pretty looking people, but I can tell you people, they were the devil's children.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, today I am going to start out with some joyous offerings, which I hope will be of interest to those of you who like things that are not necessarily controversial or scandalous, but are life enhancing. And after that, we are going to plunge into the more controversial and contentious matters. But I'm going to start off by saying I had 2 magical evenings in London this week. On Wednesday evening, I went to the opening of the Jeremy Kidd exhibition, of course, because he is so celebrated, it had to be in Marylebone, and it was at the NoHo showroom on Great Titchfield Street, which was wonderful because one was able to park, which is really important. It was organised by the Honourable Alexandra Foley. To those of you who like gossip, her stepmother was the dreaded Gillan Alexander, but we won't go into that now. But Gillan Alexander's name has cropped up before. And it was a lovely, lovely, lovely opening. I saw some, well, half of what used to be called society, in quotes, was there. All sorts of really, truly amazing faces from the past, and one of whom was Margaret Argyle's grandson, David. I've always called him David Granby because that's what Margaret and I used to refer to him as. But of course, he's now the Duke of Rutland. He was there. Who else was there? Arabella Zamoyska. She nearly married the present Duke of Marlborough many years ago. Her parents, Tom and Nicky Zamoyski, were great friends of mine. And I've known her literally since she was born. I knew her parents before she was born. And the Zamoyskis, of course, as some of you might know, are one of the great Polish families. And she's very beautiful. I'm going to post pictures of Alexandra Foley with my son, Dima. Me, of course, with Jeremy Kidd. His work is so interesting, I can't tell. But before I get to that, and I'm going to post a picture of Arabella and me. But his work is really intriguing. He hit upon the formula of taking photographs, sometimes on time release for a 24-hour period, and melding them all together to make these amazing pieces. And you will see 1 or 2 of them in the background. Okay? So there's that. And on Thursday evening, I went to Downing Street. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, hosted a wonderful concert and reception at 11 Downing Street. But to those of you who don't know, 11 and 10 Downing Street, actually, one leads into the other. And the Prime Minister officially lives at number 10 and the Chancellor at number 11. But in fact, number 11 spills out far more than number 10. And of course, we were taken on a tour. I haven't been to 11 Downing Street in decades. I went when Mrs. Thatcher was Prime Minister. That's how long ago I was there last. It's an interesting venue. It was for the Oxford Philharmonic Orchestra, which was founded by Marios Papadopulous, who is a British but Cypriot-born conductor and pianist. And he founded the Oxford Philharmonic Orchestra, which is now regarded as one of the finest orchestras in the world. It's only 25 years old. It is the orchestra in residence at Oxford. He and some of his players and the Morningside Music Bridge from Boston did the Mendelssohn Octet to start with, which was glorious, absolutely glorious. And then he and Maxim Vengerov did a Brahms scherzo. Now, I was at his table after dinner. Sorry, during dinner, after the concert, because there was the concert. Then there was a reception, and we drifted between number 10 and number 11 Downing Street. And those of us who wanted to go on a tour were taken on a tour by this wonderful curator who's just so delightful, I can't tell you. Then we piled into the hugest bus I'd ever seen. I mean, when I boarded it and saw how big it was, I said, are they getting ready to feed the 5,000? Because we were then bussed across to Bridgewater House, which is really one of the palaces by Green Park. And there we had dinner, which was absolutely lovely. And one of my dining companions said to me, was I aware of the fact that he and Maxim Vengerov had not rehearsed? And then they did, he, not with Maxim Vengerov, but he and others then did some Mendelssohn as well between the main course and the pudding, which I taped, and I'm going to play that for you. Wonderful, just magical. And that wasn't rehearsed either. Genius, absolute genius. They were, I mean, it was like bathing in godly bath water and scents. And it was just so purifying, I can't tell you. Well, let me see if I can say anything else about it, because I'm so drifting away from ecstasy. Oh, yes, very interesting. I was nearly late. In fact, I was late. Fortunately, they started about 10 minutes late, thank God, because I was ushered in just as they were about to start the Mendelssohn Octet. Because I can't believe it. I started out from Goring, and then a sign flashed up that said that I needed oil. So I phoned my garage. I have a very nice local garage called Stedman's, which is on the edge of the estate. And they said, I said, I can't bring the car in. They offered for me to. I said, I can't bring the car in. Do I know how to put on? I said, no, I don't even know how to open up the bonnet, which I don't. So anyway, they told me where to go to. So I went to a place called Kia Motors on the because I thought, I'm not going to go back on myself, because by then I was going to be really late. I thought, I'm not going to go back on myself. I'm going to go forward. And they said, well, at the Washington roundabout is Kia Motors. So I went in, and they couldn't have been nicer. They filled the car with oil. I think they must have thought, who's this daffy woman? But they were really nice about it all. So I get now to Downing Street, and of course it's a big palaver. When Mrs. Thatcher was in power, it wasn't the palaver it is now, but you have to take your ID, and they have to have your name on the door, and bloody bloody blah. And who did I see but Ava O'Neill? Some of you might be familiar with her name. She's very beautiful. She is Christopher O'Neill's mother. So she is Princess Madeleine of Sweden's mother-in-law. And they were giving her a hard time, and she was getting increasingly impatient, because if I was late, she was going to be even later. So I vouched for her, and a very tall, very obviously dedicated young policeman, he took my identification to check it, even though you could see he knew who I was. But that's understandable. I could have been a double. I mean, the crazy world we live in. And so I said to him, yes, I can vouch for her. She is Ava O'Neill. I've known her for many years, blah, blah, blah. She's Princess Madeleine of Sweden's mother-in-law. And he said, we need the paperwork. And so she said, well, please hurry up about it. And he said, I won't have you being rude to me. So I said, she's not being rude to you. So he looked, and he thought he'd better just leave it. But I thought, wow, he's quick to sort of, and of course she needed to hurry up, otherwise and in fact she missed the first movement. Now Rachel Reeves was there, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and she actually then sat where Rachel Reeves was sitting. So she was ushered in at the end of the first movement. Did I say act? I meant movement, if I said act. And so they let her in. I forgot to tell you. So after I jumped over that hurdle, they now have to check my bag, and they take off my watch and blah, blah, blah. I mean, security is really something else nowadays. And I mean, considering they knew everybody who was there, because you had to provide your ID, were all very checkable. Most of us are household names. So anyway, but they still. And so I said to the two officers, Stuart, I said, I would suggest that you go and tell your colleague that maybe he could exercise a little bit of latitude and maybe some executive judgment, because it is Princess Madeleine of Sweden's mother-in-law, and she is an old friend of the king. So I didn't wait for a response. I just said, thank you very much, and shot off so that I wouldn't be late. So I suppose. But it was a magical evening, and now I am going to ask them to post 1 or 2 pictures. I spoke to Maxim Vengerov, who I first saw in St. Petersburg in either 91 or 92 at the Russian Academy when he was a teenager. Eugenie Visharenko, who organized for my children, this was before my children were even born, she said to me, you've got to go and hear this young man. He is an absolute genius. And she got me the tickets. So I was telling him about, and he said, yes, that would be right. Charming man, charming. Then, of course, I introduced him to Princess Olga because, and you know, they then started to chat. And so I'm going to post a nice photograph of him with Olga. And then I am going to post the clip of, well, I should say Sean is going to, because it's not going to be me, is going to post the clip of Marius, etc., doing the intercourse sample, shall we say, from Mendelssohn between the main course and pudding. Enjoy brilliant, wonderful music. They are all so fine, I can't tell you. And now for those who like meat and potatoes, as well as caviar and champagne, let's plunge in with what O'Dante says. Lady C, I want to know what your bongo drums say about problems with Queen Camilla and King Charles III. I have only seen 2 posts about troubles on which may end in a separation. I personally don't believe it. What I want to know is what you think and feel about it. I was wondering, maybe Queen Camilla is tired of the king waffling back and forth about what to do about Harry, and she is still hurt by the book Spare. I can see a separation if King Charles doesn't support the Queen. What do you think? Kisses to your fur babies from my fur babies. Woof woof. Namaste, Debbie. Well, Debbie, oh, yes. My bongo drums beat out a totally different tune, I hate to tell you. Or actually, I exult in telling you, would be a better way of putting it. There are no troubles between Camilla and the king. He is very devoted to her. She's very devoted to him. She takes good care of him, and she is an exemplary wife, and she lightens the load that he carries, and he has always felt the burden of his background, expectations, his kingly burden. you know, sort of, it shouldn't be uneasy lies the head that wears the crown so much as heavy wears as opposed to uneasy. And she's actually more of not a palliator. She is more, Camilla is very family orientated, and she's very much more a live and let live person than he is. So I don't know where people get the impression that he is a waffler and a weakling. If he'd been a weakling, she wouldn't be his queen. She wouldn't even be in his life. So, because he's the one who was adamant that she was non-negotiable. So, I think people have got that end of the stick wrong and got the dynamic askew. Is she still hurt by the book Spare? Everybody is, I don't know I'd use the word hurt, but everybody has had their eyes opened as to the realities where Harry is concerned as a result of the book Spare. Do you want to invite in a viper that has already bitten you severely? I don't think so. But my understanding is that she is more of a, not peacemaker, she's more flexible and phlegmatic and more, oh, well, you know, life is, and people aren't perfect and it's family, than he is. I just say that for what it's worth. And I'm not saying he isn't either. I'm just saying that she's more so than he is. There is no separation coming, and it certainly wouldn't be coming over Harry or Meghan. I promise you, it's all those stories are utter rubbish. Also, I think, geared to keep Harry and Meghan in the news. So, I say that for what it's worth. Tanya Fabregas says, hello, our dearest Lady C. Thank you very much, Tanya. What do you make of Hugo Vickers' comment regarding Meghan Markle's treatment of the gardener at Frogmore House? Why would she need to complain to the gardener? It actually astounds me, the ego of that woman. Well, Hugo actually didn't say that she complained to the gardener. It's that one gardener was overheard by another gardener while Meghan was abusing the under gardener. And if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, that is what Hugo was saying. And the gardener went and complained, the head gardener went and complained to the Queen. And the Queen got in her car and drove to Frogmore House and said to Meghan, sorry, this is not the way you treat my staff. I will not stand for it. She did it a little bit more gently than that. But the Queen was very firm and very to the point. And she might have made it sound a little bit more pleasant than I've made it sound. But I can believe you, the message was delivered loud and clear. And of course, this will have been one of the things that Meghan held against the Queen. Remember? Who does that old woman think she is? I mean, I'm a proud, confident woman of Colin, a star of suits. She doesn't know the word royal. Who does she think she's? I'm Meghan Markle. She's just Queen Elizabeth II. Uppity old woman. I mean, really. well, then we also have, while all of this is going on, because there's plenty distraction, Meghan and Harry's technique, primarily Meghan's, she's the orchestrator more than he is, I am led to believe, is to just throw sand in the face in the hope that some of it will catch you in the eyes and you will breathe in some in your nostrils. And it's chaotic. The whole thing is chaotic. And every day there are 2 and 3 new things to contend with, each of which cancels out the other or contradicts the other, but has the purpose of keeping them in the news. Now, what is really interesting is that the timing of Ashley Hanson's departure, because she has headed up their PR for the last 2 years. I forget whether she was called the Global Press Secretary. I think she was called the Global Press Secretary. But she might actually have been called the Universal Press Secretary. Or was it the Galactic Press Secretary? Covering all the galaxies in the universe, as well as the whole of the universe. Cock my finger as I take tea pretentiously. Well, of course, she departed saying how wonderful Meghan is. But she couldn't wait to get out, evidently. And let's see who else comes in to run with the ridiculous stories that emanate from Montecito on a daily and weekly basis. Catherine Mary says, Lady C, what do the bongo drums say? Is a divorce settlement being hammered out? Would love to include an ironclad NDA from both sides. Catherine Mary, there is no divorce settlement being hammered out to the best of my knowledge and my discernment by Harry and Meghan at this point. I said it months ago, they were advised that they had to separate their careers because basically she's so toxic and vulgar, and she was reducing his royal stature. Not, of course, that he hasn't helped as well, but that's something else again. And that has turned out to be absolutely accurate. You only need to look and see. She goes along on royal tours, but otherwise she's car parking it. Jeff, Carl, you caught me? I straight to camera as I walk up and down the car park. But if you expect that they're going to be divorced in the next few weeks, I would be very surprised. Let me put it that way. The reports that I get are very mixed. Some people whom I trust say that the marriage is extremely rocky, but rocky marriages of that kind, I was the product of one of them, can last a lifetime. Then other people say, oh, but these are usually people who Harry and Meghan want to be doing Goebbels actions for them. Oh, they're perfectly happy. I don't think they're perfectly happy. A couple with their personality issues can't be perfectly happy. They can be perfectly melded in their misery, but that's not the same as being happy. So I don't believe that they're perfectly happy. And I know that Harry is dissatisfied with some aspects of life in California. But I've also been told by people that he has no plans to return to the United Kingdom at this point, if ever. Let's wait and see what happens. I think it's really dangerous to predict how much lava the volcano is going to spew as it erupts. Ram says, if Nutmeg wasn't in the picture, Harry would have been William's right hand and been almost as important as William at this time of the King's health issues. But boy, did he screw it up, thinking with the wrong head for a yacht girl. It is sad that his true mental issues prevented him from identifying her bad personality and her own mental health issues. Well, she may have mental health issues, but I also think she has character issues. Yet, they say it takes one to know one, doesn't it just? Water seeks its own level. In their case, neither could justify or could identify with each other's mental health issues. Well, they certainly can't help to solve the problems that their health issues create. What they do is compound them, and what they have done is, by becoming the folie à deux that they have, the double act, Bonnie and Clyde, Abelard and Eloise, Romeo and Juliet, Harry and Meghan. Oh dear. Oh. I think we can leave it at that for the moment, because Marcia Sagadore says, when did the husband's entire outlook on his future life change? I remember for years he always said he wanted to leave royal duties behind and retire to Africa to be a safari guide and help animals. That's why he took his pre-wives to Africa on their first overseas trip, to show her his dream. Pre-wife, she said, but it was really all the pre-wives, because he took all the others as well. At which point she shut herself and put her own plan into overdrive. Oh. At which point she then there's an asterisk T, herself, and put her own plan into overdrive. Well, I do know that she relieved herself in the bushes, and he was filled with admiration that she was so earthy. Oh, that was the start. All the excitement makes the babies capable of anything. Oh. There's just the thinnest veneer of civility and socialization. Beneath it is an animal. Oh, so thrilling. He was always so adamant about this. which is why I don't believe he's worried about being overtaken by his niece and nephews. So only God knows what she told him to make him leave his home, family, friends, and the only life he ever knew, including abandoning his retirement dream for the sole purpose of making herself rich and famous. Except she didn't tell him that part. What kind of demonic drive is able to do that to another human being? Well, you make some interesting points, which by and large have sort of gone over everybody's head. Yes, when did his outlook on his future life change? It started to change once the ring was on her finger and she realized that she could move him to California. But the ground was being laid from before. But remember what he said in the engagement interview. She was going to be a team player. She was eager. They both made the point. She was eager to be a part of the royal family and be a support, blah, 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 blah. When things really intensified is when they were humiliated in the eyes, potentially, of the world, when Archie did a prenatal Tom Daly and took that dive at Birkenhead. That is the beginning of all. If you go back to the timeline, and she had been throwing her weight around, and he had been throwing his weight around and allowing her to throw her weight around. And there were already the complaints that were being pursued through Jason North's complaint to Simon Case about Meghan bullying various members of staff. But that was not the decisive thing in my estimate. In my estimate, the decisive thing was Birkenhead. Now, people can have another opinion, but can you imagine the humiliation of and the anxiety and the, well, humiliation is the right word, that people close to you will ultimately twig that something irregular in your behavior has been taking place that they had no idea about, and that your behavior is calling your motivations and your ambitions and your aims into question. Can you imagine having to face people like that on a daily basis? Or, well, since the royals don't actually meet each other on a daily basis because they're all busy, each one in its, like a star in its own constellation, but they do overlap from time to time. I think that's the point at which things derailed. Quert Y1 says, with multi-million dollars left in the charitable bank accounts, why haven't Harry and Meghan made significant donations to a worthy cause? Even $1 million would make an enormous difference. One thing is for sure, if Harry and Meghan had made such a donation, the whole world would know about it. After all, we all know about the donation of the vegetable box to the school Meghan and Harry, you missed out Harry, visited. It seems these bank accounts of Archewell, etc., are just holding accounts for monies to be used by Harry and Meghan themselves. My dear, many a charitable foundation in the United States is nothing but a massive tax dodge. It's a way of very rich people shielding their money to the extent that they are capable of doing it. So, and the problem with Harry and Meghan is they don't have that degree of money to do it to the extent that there will be no pong from what they're doing. So, but they have made significant donations to political causes. Read the tax returns. Listen to what I said about the tax returns. Listen to what my accounting genius told me about the tax returns and about them giving donations in strict it's strictly forbidden by the rules and regulations, and they have been giving donations to political activist organizations, despite the fact that you're not allowed to do it if you have a charitable element to your organization. And I think we should end there. There was another question, but I think it's on a totally different subject, and let's end there. Because the other subject is pretty weighty as well. And since I think it's good, let's have a nice weekend ending on that note. Okay? Thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay? Thank you. Take good care. God bless. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you get a like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and Godspeed. Bye-bye.